Hi, I'm Brian James. I've come aware of the love of God for people, all people. And I've also been able to see Him work in the lives of numerous of those around me and even my own life. And so I wanted to just share with you some of those stories. And so I put together a video. And I hope that these videos encourage you as much as I was encouraged to have them to share. So, enjoy. When I got to high school, I wasn't ready for everything that everybody seemed to be into. You know, the sex, the drugs, the suicide, the depression, the anger, the gangs, the violence. It was just all beyond me. And I remember I had this one friend who was done. She was depressed and she was tired of fighting. And I remember she was reaching out to me for help one night over the computer, but I didn't recognize it because she was getting offensive, so I got defensive, and I ended up making things worse. So we signed up upset at each other, and I go back to doing my homework before I call it a night, and I get this gripping feeling in my stomach and this overwhelming impression to just give her a call and apologize. And I didn't take it as anything spiritual. I just figured, you know, this is my friend, I was a jerk, I can do that. And so I call her up. She answers. She's really quiet. She's crying. And she asks me if I want to hear something funny. And I said, sure. And at this point, my heart's in my throat, right? And she said that right before she was going to do it, she had everything lined up in the bathroom. This was it. She was going to kill herself. She prayed one last time that if God was real, and that if He didn't want her to do it, then the phone would ring. In that split second, the phone rang. It was me. Now, I know what you're thinking, like, okay, nice story. It could be a coincidence, though. Hey, that's fair enough. 3 months later, my Uncle Leo was in the hospital with cancer everywhere, predominantly lung cancer because the apartment buildings he lived in 6 years earlier had mold in the basements, and that mold developed in his lungs. I'm sure you can imagine what that would feel like, right? And so now this guy's on his deathbed, and I'm this semi-new Christian, and I feel that I have to share. So I write him a letter. I tell him of my friend 3 months earlier. I gave him some scriptures that my youth pastor gave me, and I said, listen, man, if I'm right, everything happens. If I'm wrong, nothing happens. This isn't a big gamble for you here. I told him I loved him. I left it at that. And 3 days later, he calls my house and he tells my mom over the phone what happened. And she comes into the room where I was, and she's just bawling. And she tells me what he told her. He said that as soon as he began to read the letter, he began to cry. By the time he finished reading the letter, he began to hack and cough violently to the point where he coughed up this huge ball of black crud into the wastebasket beside him. And for the first time in 6 years, he could breathe on his own. Now, this guy wasn't a believer as far as I knew, but I mean, he was probably just standing there like, what the heck just happened, right? And so he leans over the bed to look in the wastebasket so he can show the nurse what happened. And whatever it was that he coughed up was gone.